I want to give all praise and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Ha, Rakakadash. Double honors unto our apostle elders, which ruled great millstone while and which taught us the truth, taught Israel the truth, taught me the truth. Shalom to the elect, wa abal babal. So I just wanted to share this little banger of information of history that I came across. It says, history features several striking examples of young princesses married to much older kings. King David, he was an older man, and he had a virgin, which in this wicked society, it would be considered a crime. But in the real world, all right, women were married young, okay? But now, because of the wickedness that happens, young girls, they sleep around, they have abortions, they have many partners, all right? But really, a young girl, after she passed her flower, which is her first period, according to history and prophecy, they would marry according to that time, all right? Now, they would marry them young and bring them into their household so that they would be trained up in the way you wanted them. All right. So it says almost exclusively for political alliances. The most famous case is Isabella Valois, who married King Richard II of England in 1396. The bride, Princess Isabella of Valois, France, she's the Princess of France, was just 6 years old, meaning her parents is the one that gave her to that man, at the time of her wedding. The groom, King Richard II of England, was 29 years old. It says details. The details negotiated as a peace treaty between England and France. The marriage was platonic and never consummated. Isabella was given her own household to practice being queen and was treated more like a daughter until she came of age. She had her first period. But she was raised up like a daughter in King Richard II's house. All right. She was raised up, but when she passed her flower, that's when the marriage was consummated, which I'm going to show you this in the Bible. All right, this happened with King Solomon, with King David. All right, this is how it's going to be in the kingdom of heaven. All right, which will be here on earth. It says Richard was deposed just 3 years later. All right, that word there is
deposed.
Deposed. I said deposed. Deposed.
Deposed.
It says is the past tense and past particle of the verb depose, which has two primary meanings, depending on the context, being forcibly removed and it says forcefully removed from a powerful position, or giving some testimony. All right. So just so we understand what that word is. But now I wanted to get King Solomon, all right, which this is in the Song of Solomon, chapter 6, verse 8. And I just had Google explain it, which it's pretty self-explanatory. It says Song of Songs 6, verse 8 uses poetic imagery to contrast the vast numbers of royal wives and attendants with the beloved's unique, unparalleled beauty, which it's talking about wisdom, all right? But it also tells how many wives and concubines and virgins King Solomon had, all right, in his harem. It says the verse establishes a hierarchy of the king's women to highlight how the Shulamite stands out as the ultimate and singular object of his affection, which he's talking about the Israelites that have the wisdom, and he's also referring to King David being an older man, and he had a Shulamite woman that was a young virgin before he passed. So King Solomon wrote this in a poetic way, but it's really history and prophecy. All right. So it says breakdown of the terms: 60 queens, 60, which is 60, the primary wives of the king. In ancient royalty, these were often women from noble or royal families secured through political alliances. So King Solomon, how he went off was he began to marry the heathen women, which we're not supposed to do. We're supposed to keep them as concubines, but you're not supposed to marry a heathen woman like you would an Israelite woman, because the Israelite woman is in on the covenant through Yahweh Shai. Yahweh Ba'asham Yahweh Shai made the new covenant, the old covenant and the new covenant with the Israelite man and woman and child. The other nations don't have that. So really the primary wives should have been Israelites, but King Solomon went off and started marrying heathen women and pretty much began to worship their idols. It says in 80 concubines, 80, so he had 80 concubines, secondary wives. They held legal marital status, but usually lacked the same social standing or inheritance rights as queens, which Israel did not have queens. We had princesses. Queen means whore. The other nations had queens. All right. We had princesses. So this is going off by saying that King Solomon had queens, but that's what's in the scripture as it says queens, but the word queen means whore. All right. But the Israelites, our women were known as princesses. It says virgins without number. The unmarried maidens, which they were engaged to King Solomon, attendants or ladies in waiting within the royal court. And what were they waiting for? To come to age where they had their first virginity. The first period where they would lose their virginity after the there's a cleaning period where you have to leave them alone for so long so that they could go through their unclean period, but then when they become clean, that's when you would marry them through the action of consummating the marriage. All right. So this shows you, history and prophecy. There's a law that endure forever, and the women were created for marriage, and the body of a woman is commanded to show when that woman goes from a girl to a woman and is ready to marry and bear children. And that's why you'll see young girls go from playful little kids to becoming boy-driven, rebellious girls, because really it's in their DNA that they want a husband. In the Hebrew, their name is Yalada, which is the Hebrew for girl, and it means he leads her through the door, and the ha means prayer. So really a woman is to be led from being a little girl to eventually being a woman through men. The father leading her as a little child, teaching her to honor her parents, and then when she's given over to her husband is supposed to rule over her and keep her in the worship of Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai. That's how King Solomon went off, was he married the heathen women and showed them the same compassion that really he should have only showed to the Israelite women. And it caused them to go off by then beginning to worship their idols and building temples to their idols to please those women, the heathen women. So this just showing you that there is a time where in the future, when righteousness is ruling on the earth, the women are not going to be without ownership from the stage of birth to growing up and being a wife, and then even being a grandmother and bringing forth many generations, because the Israelite woman will not age or die, so we will be bringing forth many generations. All right, but there's honor in the position for a woman to be a wife, a daughter, a wife, a mother, and then eventually to see other generations come forth as a grandmother, meaning a great mother. All right? So I just wanted to pull up one more about the passing of the flower in 2 Corinthians 7 and I think it might be 1 Corinthians, actually. 1 Corinthians 7. Yes, it's teaching on marriage. So let me go ahead and jump down. It says, right here, it says in 1 Corinthians 7 verse 35, and this I speak for your own profit, not that I may cast a snare upon you, cause you to sin, but for that which is comely, and that ye may attend upon the Lord without distraction. But if any man think that he behaveth himself uncomely toward his virgin, if she pass the flower of her age, she has her period, and need so require, meaning she's in heat, let him do what he will, he sinneth not, let them marry. All right? And the thing was, in Corinth, it was like America, where marriage wasn't seen as a lifetime commitment. All right? They were just popping each other and just laying around, and some men said, hey, I'm not going to allow my daughter to marry and become a whore. So then he would pretty much keep her from marrying so that he could serve the Lord without distraction. But there's a time where a woman, she gets a passion for a man, a fire in her belly, and she pretty much, she's in heat, and it's almost irresistible that she lay down with a man. So that's what it's saying, that you marry your daughter off, and it tells you to a man of the Lord, all right, to take care of that desire, that passion that comes in play when they have their first period. There's a movie called Professional. If you look up the making of that movie, it was supposed to be about a love story of a young actress that marries an older actor that played a professional hitman. But they altered it so that it wouldn't offend people, but that's the original story. And it even seems like that in the way it came out in the movie The Professional. And they show you that it's really the female that's in heat that's driving the desire for laying in bed together. All right, which this is just facts. This is actual facts that young girls have a burst of sexual desire when they have their period, which they supposedly have sex ed in the schools, which that should be elementary knowledge, that a woman was created to serve a man in marriage. That's the purpose of a woman, and that's how wicked this world is they left the purpose of a woman. You got women that never marry. They only sleep around or don't even, they deem, like nuns, they have the myth that these women are virgins until death. All right? Which that's not correct. That's not biblical. Or women that have many husbands, that's not biblical. Adultery, a married woman sleeping with another man, that's punishable by death on both sides. All right, and a man was supposed to have lots of women, like King Solomon. He had wives, which would have been Israelite women, concubines, the heathen women, and then he would have had virgins, which were young girls that were waiting to come to age to be married to King Solomon. And the thing that set them apart was the period. All right, this is biblical, and that's all I'm saying about this subject, is that it's a biblical thing that Israelite men had wives, concubines, and we married women young according to the Bible. All right, this is how it was done in the past, and this is how it will be in the kingdom of heaven, which will be here on earth according to the Bible. Shalom to the elect. Wa abba babal.